is child molestation, child abuse, protecting, children against child abuse and child molestation. I want to know, who believes that most children are abused by strangers? Is it a fact or a myth? It's a myth. Okay, so we believe that most children are not abused by strangers. Okay. Some people can be trusted. Myth or fact? Myth? Myth? Fact? Fact. Okay. Seems we have 50-50 divided house. Okay. Some. Okay. Okay. Can be trusted. Okay. It isn't important for me to tell my child about sexual assault. Myth or fact? It's a myth. Okay. Child sexual molestation is a rare occurrence in the conscious Muslim community. Myth or fact? Myth. Wow, we are very intelligent in this lesson. Most children who are sexually abused do something to cause the abuse. Myth or fact? Myth. Excellent. Okay. Fact. We are very correct with our choice of answers. But when I say some people can be trusted, we had a 50-50 divide house. I want us to put it at the back of our minds that no one can be trusted when it gets to our children. No one. Immediately we have that some people can be trusted idea. It gives us this idea that it's my neighbor now, Shebi is married and has children and all that. That some clouds our sense of judgment. We've heard of incest cases, right? We've heard of husbands molesting their children. We've heard of brothers, even mothers. In fact, don't trust yourself. In terms of general thing, I'm not saying in terms of this alone. Okay, let me give you an example of why that is an exception. You trust your husband now. He is good, he is everything, he will never do such a thing, right? Something happens, he goes into midlife crisis and begins to have mental health issues. We also believe that one cannot happen to us, right? That's why we shouldn't put it at the back of our mind. Let me give us, okay, what age did the Prophet ﷺ say that, okay, no, let me not use the Prophet because we have different schools of thought based on different hadith. What age is the lowest age of which the school of thought says that your husband, which is the father of your child, cannot see the nakedness of your child? What age is the lowest? Anyone knows? 7? Any age lower than that? Do we know that Ibn Ambal said that it is 2? Yes. And there are proofs for it. At the age of 2, a father should not see the complete nakedness of his child. So neither should he touch. I'm not of that school of opinion, no. I'm just saying. And if you read the explanation, it's a whole lot. 2. I was surprised when I was reading it myself. For some, it's 5. For some, it's 7. So even the idea of saying that an adult, male, whether husband or not, should wash a child of 7 or a child of 5 is wrong. Islamically, according to some school of thought. Okay, so 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 4 girls will be sexually abused before the age of 18. It's a fact. In fact, I tried testing this. We had a group of, it was women only. So, and we're talking about something close to child molestation and all that. And I said, 1 out of every 4 women here has been abused. I said, if you want to be truthful to ourselves, if you know that you have been abused before, we here, no camera, nothing, and we can, in fact, we can face our back so that we will not see each other. Raise up your hand. Trust me, out of every 4 in that place, 1 had been sexually abused. Life and direct. In Abuja here, not far and wide. So this is a fact. Statistics done by the CDC. Now, about 35% of victims are 11 years old or younger. I'm sure we have heard 2 years, 3, 4, 5. But 35% of children who have been abused are 11 years old or younger. We were very correct when we said most of the, children abused were not by strangers, because statistics shows that only 10% of our perpetrators are strangers. Only 10. Or even lower, exactly. Are strangers. Who you need to be bothered about are not strangers at all. Because 90% are well known to you and your children. 90%. Now, out of this 90%, 30% are family members. 30% are family members. I will tell us a story of why we shouldn't also hold the opinion as that some can be trusted. So if we say 30% are family members, we are left with about 60%, right? That 60% are also people you trust. They are people you trust. And unfortunately, 30% of those 60% are also children themselves. So children abuse children. So older children, 30% are older children who abuse younger children. I'll talk a little bit about pedophilia as we go on, so we understand how these things happen. Okay, so now that we know the facts, let's go back to the first slide that I said we should skip. The one about the steps. Good. So the steps to protecting our children: first is to know the facts. Second is to minimize the risk. The third is to talk about it. 4 is recognize the signs. And 5 is react responsively. What are the impacts? The impacts are enormous, and that's why I really appreciate the fact that Micah is, bringing this to the forefront. We can't continue to hide from these things. We just need to talk about it. And the more we talk about it, the more we know that these things are happening, and we need to protect our children. Because the truth of the matter is that 80% of the children who have been abused will eventually grow up to become people who use drugs or people who use alcohol, most times excessively. Unfortunately, I always see that Muslims have this idea of, we are Muslims now, it doesn't happen to us, Muslims, do we use drugs or do we use alcohol? I work in a rehab part-time, and I can tell you that 50% of those children who are in the rehab are Muslims. Trust me, 50% of the children that are in the rehab are Muslims. 50% are non-Muslims. And I know that is what happens in most other rehabs, because I get to talk to people and they tell me that's what happens. So we need to stop this denial or this act of, it doesn't happen to us. Because when I talk outside, I see that, people are like, is it happening to us? In fact, 50% of those people in the rehab that I work that are Muslims, you will be surprised that some of them are conscious Muslims. When I mean conscious Muslims, women who wear the big hijab, who talk with the mashallah and all that, of what we can understand. And they will come in. And I'm like, what went wrong? What happened? Children, teenagers, young adults, 21, 20, 19. One of them started drinking alcohol at 10. One got exposed when he went to a friend's place. Things that when we tell parents, in fact, we used to say we can't tell this one to the parent, we'll say it amongst us. We cannot even dare because the parents will go into, I don't know, shock. So we should stop living in denial. This thing happens to us. And funny enough, because of the stigma, most rehabs and most places where people can seek psychological help are not obvious, because we don't want it to be stigmatized. So you will not even see signboard, you will not even see a name, it will just be building. But until we stop this stigma, which we will later talk more about, then we'll begin to actually seek help and help the children who have been molested. So that's what statistics says, that at about 80% of those people, they use drugs and alcohol. I will elaborate more on some of these things. Now, among male survivors of sexual abuse, 50% of them have suicidal thoughts. Why? Out of these 50%, more than 20% have attempted suicide, one way or the other. Most of these happen in the university days. Most of them have attempted suicide. Now, young girls who have been abused are likely to develop eating disorders as teenagers and as adults. The girls, what they do is they won't drink, they won't smoke, they won't do all of these things, but their own is a little bit subtle. So they have eating disorders. It's either they eat too much or they don't eat enough. So that's why you see a lot of them, they will be on the big side. And if you check deep down, they don't know why they get fat, but it is because of the fact that they've been abused as children. And then when you now dig in deeper, you see how this has emotionally affected them and gotten them to that level. Statistics also shows that they are most likely to engage in prostitution. Now, this one is of concern to me. Abused children who don't tell, or who tell, but they are ignored and you are lying, you are what. They eventually end up having psychological issues, emotional, social, or physical problems, often lasting into old age. And one thing we need to note is that when a child tells you this, trust me, they never lie. Children never lie with such things. Never. So if a child comes to you and says, Lagbaja is doing this thing or doing something, please dig in deep. They won't lie. Because if you don't attend to it, they are likely going to have psychological, emotional, social, and physical problems later on. I've had, a lot of cases wherein people that are happily married, in fact, a lady was telling me, she said, the day it happened to her, I think she was 20 or 21 or so, she was sent by her mom to go meet the alpha to collect something. I can't remember what she said she wanted to go and collect from the alpha. And then she has been going to collect the thing on and off for the mom. So, and then he attempted it that day. In fact, it's God that saved her. Anyway, she was able to, prevent the incident. And when she got home and she told her mom said, she's lying. That if it is true, it is her who seduced the alpha. Just like we said in the first, that it was her who made the alpha want to do it. Can you imagine? And this is something, the incident did not traumatize her. It's the fact that she told her mom, and her mom said she was the one who wanted to, that traumatized her. Till today, she still finds it difficult to forgive her mom. And she uses that to do some things that we are, she's working on. So this is something we really need to work on. If a child tells you this, that, please dig in deep into it. We'll elaborate more, inshallah. And then we need to also know that child abuse costs individuals, families, government billions of naira yearly. Somebody who has psychological issues, emotional issues, grows up, is not able to function well at work, loss of capital, loss of labor time, is not able to do a lot of things. Seeking therapy, families of children who have gone into drugs and all that, it costs people a lot of money. So it's better for us to prevent this from happening than for it to happen and then, we begin to look for solution. Child molestation is an adult issue. Everybody is concerned. We need to be concerned. Everybody. We are the protectors of these children. They can't protect themselves in real terms, but we are the ones who need to protect them. So we should all be watchful and at alert. It's not only a parent issue. It's not only, it's their issue. No, every individual should be at alert. If we notice anything snaky, let's talk about it, and then let us not give room for predators. For example, there was a lady who came on one of the platforms I was in, and then she was ranting and raving, all sorts. What was it? She said she has a swim instructor for her child. And I think the child is 5 or so. So the child goes to learn swimming. In that, it's a public place, so it's not a private thing. But the instructor comes into this place, teaches the children and go. But it's one-on-one. And then unfortunately for her that day, she was beaten. She dropped the child, went to do something, and then when she got home, story like that, she was beating the child, and the child was, cranky and all that. She was like, what happened? She now said the swim instructor touched her in her bum. And then on check-in, she discovered that the guy had been fingering her. So she went all out, was complaining and all that. And I said, the truth of the matter is, even though everybody was blaming the guy and all that, I told her that she gave room for the predator. These people are sick. That's the truth. You need to know that they are sick. Because they are sick, their own is separate. We don't need to give them room to do what we don't want them to do. As part of the steps, we'll explain some of these things. We don't need to. Because pedophilia, for example, is a disorder. Sexual molestation which is, is a disorder for some. In fact, not for some. For all of them, they are sick. So it's like when we know that this person is a madman, we are now giving him an opportunity to enter into our house and display his madness. Then he breaks all sorts of things in the house and we begin to complain. We shouldn't give room for predators. We'll talk about it too. So like I said, they are sick. Protect yourself and protect our children. So we need to learn to minimize risk. Avoid any situation of isolation, any opportunity. That's what I told the woman. I said, why on earth will you give your child to a male, a grown male, to teach swimming lessons one-on-one and you are not there? One, you must look for a female instructor, even female to female, which is what we'll still talk about. I'm supposed to even say me. Female to female happens. That one said, you're just reducing the risk. But now you didn't do female to female. You did male to female, alone, inside swimming pool. What were you expecting with swimming trunk? A sane, normal man will not do on a 5-year-old. He's sick. He won't even get attracted, exactly. So he's sick, obviously. So we should never give an opportunity for that. Please, when you know that your children will be in isolation with anyone, it should be same sex. Swimming classes, taekwondo. Exactly, not even one-on-one. So let's even assume that you are the only one that is tush in your community and you want your child to learn that thing. Let's say, for example, then look for a female instructor. And the day you will not be there, please, exactly. It's no class today. This also applies to one-on-one Islamia Malam in the house. The Malam comes to the house, mom not there, dad not there, no one in the house, only the Malam and the girl child say, he's man of God. We are tempting the devil. room for isolation. Choose group situations at every time. Let your child go to group Islamia. And if you must do at home, then it should be group too. You, your children, you know. Because, in fact, even you and your children, trust me, it's not safe. It's not safe. I've heard of different, in fact, sometimes I believe that the Malams use diabolical means. Astaghfirullah. Because when a matured woman, you know, does something like that with the children in the house, it's not normal. So we shouldn't even give opportunities for that. We shouldn't give up. We need to be very blunt with ourselves and say it as it is. Because we've heard it. Even of recent, this year, to the extent that the man was now telling the woman to divorce the husband so that he will now marry her. You know, so things happen. Choose group situations every time. Only in extreme cases should we choose, you know, isolated situations. And I need to also note this. You can't prevent sexual molestation completely. It's not possible, but we can all try. We can all try. Because sometimes, no matter how good you think you are, things happen. I'll tell us the story of a lady. I wish I could get the video on the internet because it was there, but I couldn't anymore. I'll tell us the story when we get to like the third step. Okay? Safety in situations in which older teenagers have access to younger children. Like I told us, 30% of those people who molest children are also children themselves, right? Okay? And I don't know if I also said it. Abuse children, abuse children. That is, children who have been abused also abuse children. Exactly. So, abuse children, abuse children. So, we shouldn't say they are children playing now. No. You know, we should be very, very careful. So, at every point in time, when we know that there will be older children doing something with younger children, there should be multiple adults present at all time. Do a rapid head count if you are in charge. Always do head count. You know, okay, there are 5 girls, there are 5 boys. At every point in time, because these children can be very funny. You will be there and you think nothing is going on. Yet they've tapped each other and they've sneaked to Koro, you know, and something is happening. So children to children too, we need to be very careful. If you know that your child will be going to a place where there will be older children and there won't be adult supervision, please don't let your child go. And if you have the influence to make changes, then call for adults to be there to supervise whatever is happening. So we shouldn't say because they are older children, they should, you know, be allowed to do. Even children that are not outsiders. I've had cases of elder brother to sister. Trust me, Muslims. Trust me when I say a conscious mother. More conscious than, I don't know. Permit me to say more conscious than I am. And the elder brother, you know, at the end of the day, we discovered that he was just experimenting. Unfortunately, he was experimenting on his younger sister. Things happen. What these ears have heard and what these eyes have seen, trust me when I say that things are happening. So we should be very, very careful. And this is a woman that is extremely careful. However, one thing that was lacking was that she didn't tell the child that even family members can be predators, which we will talk about. We need to talk about it and let our children know that even family can be predators. And that's why when we say some people can be trusted, we should remove that when we are telling our children. We should tell them no one can be trusted. Your private part is your private part. Your public part is your public part. Good touch is good touch. Bad touch is bad touch, regardless of who is doing the touching. Whether it's brother or sister or anybody. We should let them know. No one can be trusted, not even your dad or your sister or your brother or anything. We need to let that be at the back of their mind. Because when I heard this first case, I myself, I was shocked. When I saw the child and I was like, what were you thinking? So we need to be extremely careful. So in all situations where you know that, I know that sometimes it can be stressful, but we need to do it for these children. We need to do it for these children. One of the other things that I've noticed that is also a culprit for this is movies. You know, when we expose our children to movies, unfortunately, you don't even need to expose them. They themselves expose themselves. You are not home, they will watch all sorts. But regardless of the watching, if we are a family who talk about these things in family, even if a child watches all the things that they are watching, they will know that they will know how to set boundaries when we talk about it. So this is something we must talk about. We just must talk about it. Okay? So understand that abusers often become friendly with potential victims and families. Abusers, like I told us, are people you know and people that you trust. So if we know that as a fact at the back of our mind, then we will know that when we leave our children alone with someone we trust and they are in isolation, then we know that anything can happen. Anything can happen. So we should be extremely careful. And we should also tell adults who care for our children in any setting that your child is educated about sexual abuse. Be direct, oh. It's true. As you are dropping your child in school, know that the school that your children are going to, they are conscious about these things. It's very important. And if it is not school, in any setting, as you are dropping your child in, I don't know, Islamia, whatever it is, continuously let them know that me and my children, we talk about sexual abuse and sexual molestation. So even if the man is, he knows that this one is a no-go area, untouchable. Because when this one goes, she will tell. So we need to be very direct. So be direct. Say it. The schools your children are going to, talk to the teachers about it. Talk to the headmistress about it. You know, and like, this is something we need to talk about. Okay? Next slide. So I'm talk about sexual abuse to your children. Use age-appropriate languages. Please, start as early as 2 years old. Because things are happening. I have some books I wanted to use as example. I don't know, maybe they can help me get them in the car. Don't touch me there. You know, start from as early as 2 years. Tell them where is their private part, where is their, public part. Tell them about good touch, bad touch. That book is good for even 2 years old. So some people answered my question, so I'll give them as a gift. And then tell them that be very direct. Don't be, playing about it. Some people, when you want to, tell them their V is their V. Name it. Be very specific so that when a child comes and says, hey, somebody touched me on my bum bum, bum bum is bum bum. Somebody touches me on my, that place, because let the child know the names of each part. And the child will be very specific when the person is telling you. Not that somebody touched me on my bum bum and it is not the bum bum. Or somebody touched me at my back. So give them the specific names, even as early. Shebi, his name is part of the body. So what's the big deal? And it is their body. So tell them now. And tell them that an abuser may be an adult friend, a family member, or an older youth. I said this already. Please let them know. Nobody can be trusted. They should know, you know. And then please start early. Like I said, use everyday opportunities to talk about it. Like, for example, when I was preparing this slide, and my son was asking me that, what topic was I talking about in Micah today? And I told him, I'm talking about child abuse and molestation. All of us, we started talking about it, even to my 8-year-old. And I used that opportunity again to ask her again, did anybody touch you? Was there any bad touch? She said, no. This is something that I do regularly. Right from when she was 2. I was even more careful with the girl, you know, initially, forgetting that boys too are victims. You know, it was later on and I started saying, even the boys, so I'll bring them in too and ask them. So from 2 years, I would ask her, did anybody touch you, bad touch? She'd say no. Okay, if something wanted to happen like that, what would you do? You know, these are some things we have done. Scream, no, shout, run. If anybody says, I will kill you if you don't talk, your mommy will do this, your mommy will do that. I say, will I do it through? She'll say no. So what will you do? I'll come, I'll say, okay. That's what we'll say. We'll say, you tell the person, okay. Say, yes, I'll say, okay, thank you. And I'll come home and I'll tell. We need to tell them these things. This is the book I was talking about. No, don't touch me there. It's very, even from 2 years old, you can use it for your children. Very straightforward. It tells them about, you know, the good parts, the private part, the public part, you know, and what they should do about it. We can have it passed around for those, and then I'll have it given to the people who answered my questions. Now, be very proactive. If a child is uncomfortable or resistant with being with a particular adult, question it. There's a WhatsApp video I'd wanted to share, you know, of a child who was refusing to go to the neighbor's house. And then the mom was like, I have to get work done and all that, and she forced the child to go. Unfortunately, it is because this man has been doing something, that's why she didn't want to go. So we should be proactive. If our child used to be friendly to someone before, smiles, jokes, does everything, and then all of a sudden the person comes to our house and our child is doing like this, hey, ask, so what's happening? And, you know, try to make sure that you get to the roots of it. Please understand how children communicate. Most times they don't tell their parents. They will tell a trusted adult. And when they tell a trusted adult, sometimes, trust me, it is difficult for that trusted adult to come and tell the parents, because we know how some of these parents do. A lot of things that I have heard, and I'm wondering, how do I tell this mother? Because I know that if she hears, she will say it's a lie. Or she will say it is, you know, something, 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 something. So she will say something, something. So we will find it very difficult to tell the parents. So children actually would communicate with someone else. So when that person comes to tell you, we will say some of the things you should do, you know. And then they also do something very funny. They will not say directly it happened to them. They will say, hey, mommy, so if this thing happened to, you know, it happened to one of my friends. One person now said, Omorobo is coming, oh. Allow them finish. Say what you want to say. You will now say if it happens to you. Sometimes you'll notice their reaction. If you are very, very careful. It is them that it happened to, oh. But they know that they cannot come and say it is me. So they will say their friend. Because sometimes it's two things. They want to gauge your reaction. Is she going to blow up or she'll be calm about it? So when they notice that it's like mommy is going to take it calmly, they will now say, you see them rambling. Tell me about it. Don't worry, even if it happens to you, the heaven will not fall and all that. Then you will now hear, it's me it happened to, or something, something like that. So we need to learn how those children communicate, and then we guide. Recognize the signs. Physical signs may be present, but not all the times. Some of these people have known how to master their act. So sometimes it is not present, but sometimes it is present. So when a child has scratches and bruises where it's supposed not to have, or when a child is flinching when you are baiting for her, or you are not baiting for her and the child begins to limp, you know, and you can't see a physical, maybe no fall or nothing, please probe and ask what happened. Or a child has toilet infection, in quotes, like we call it, you know, and we know that this is something that a child should not have. So where did the child get it from? Probe, please, and try to know who is doing what to that child. Emotional and behavioral signal is the most obvious one. You know, a child who is joyful, happy, lively, and everything, all of a sudden decides to be introverted, kind of. Please probe what is happening. Try to ask, you know. It ranges from when a child is too perfect, they begin to behave perfectly. They don't want you to see their mistake. Or they begin to withdraw. Sometimes some of them go into depression. Sometimes they have unexplained anger and rebellion. You just see that the child starts rebelling or becomes unnecessarily angry, and you are wondering what's happening. You know, so maybe at this junction I should even tell us the story I wanted to tell us about. This happened to, you know, whenever I remember the story, it really hits home hard. This happened to a lady. She's in the UK. She has just 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl. She's a Muslimah, hijabite, very conscious, mashallah. The husband too, very conscious, mashallah. And they have 2 children. 1 is 7, the other one was 3. The 7 is the one that is a boy. The 3 is the one that is a younger one. I'm using this particular story because I know that they are not in Nigeria, they're in US. So you cannot count 1 and 2 together. So I'm not going to use a Nigerian story. Real life story, trust me. And that 7-year-old has been continuously molested under her roof in her house for 3 good years, and she didn't know. This is a woman who homeschooled her children. They don't go to school. This is a woman who is a psychologist and is into child protection. This is an umbrella mom. I don't know if you know what we know umbrella mom. You know all those moms that are like chicken and chicks on their children. Yet, her first son was abused under her roof for 3 years. She did not know. How did she know? The guy started abusing the girl, which was 3. And when he started, he will call the older one to come and watch while he did it on the 3-year-old. Unfortunately, she wasn't even the one who eventually knew. It was a day in the evening, they were all sleeping. The children had their room, the boy had his room, but the girl was co-sleeping with the father and the mother. So they were trying to transfer, you know, when you will try to separate the rooms. So they were just teaching the younger girl. So they will put her like maybe a week, bring her back like 2 days, like that, on and off. So that particular evening, the girl was just crying and crying. They had transferred her to her room. So the husband went there and carried the baby. So on carrying the baby, he just felt that the baby was wet. So he decided to clean the child up and bathe the child. As he was doing that, he wasn't feeling too comfortable. That why is this child doing like this? So he called the wife and like, come and see this child and all that. So on picking the child, she noticed that things were not right. Her instinct now kicked in. Instinct that didn't kick in from 3 years ago, probably because that one was older. So she rushed that child that same night to, thank God, UK now, you know they have all those things. She took the child and then they examined the child. In fact, when she was saying the story, it was on Facebook for a while. I think she brought it down after a lot of shouts from people. She said while they were checking the child, because they do a thorough examination, it's for like more than an hour, She just stood there with so much shock and was just crying. And then the coroner was confirming everything. When the report came out, they discovered that that wasn't the first time it had been on. And because they know that it is likely that it is not only the girl, that was when they brought the boy in, and then the boy now started to talk. And then explained how it happens, how he would do it to the girl, and then tell him to watch from the beginning. Wait, I will still get there now. I want that one to be the last shocker. So he will do it to the girl and then tell the man to watch, tell the boy to watch. The worst part, he will now tell the boy to do it on the girl. You know when they say someone turns to a jelly? She was so shocked. True to it, they examined the boy and they discovered the same thing. So let me bust our bubble. Who was the person doing it to these children? A teenager who was the younger brother of the husband and lived with them. Funny enough, the house is a duplex. They stayed up, the guy stays down. Just because they wanted to prevent intermingling. But children, they will find a way. He found a way. And he was doing it for 3 good years. Now, when the bubble is out and they told the mother of the teenager, who happens to be her own mother-in-law, Abi, Pamisilema Pamisita, they want to, and she refused. And that was how it went all, we got to know, because it went all out. So, it's a long story. Let me just pause it here. It's a really long story. So this is why we should be very, very careful and ask. Because according to her, the boy never had any physical signs. So she didn't know. The only thing that she knew, which she was now remembering, you know when things are happening, you now begin to remember, was that at the age of 5, this is a boy who was jovial, blah, blah, blah. He started having emotional and behavioral issues. And she felt that it was just being a stage. You know, he was transiting from one stage to another. So that was what is a stage. He will go over it. He will go over it. He will go over it. The mistake she made was not asking and probing and getting to the bottom of that issue. Even if it is a stage, you know, you want to let your child seek help. Let the person see a psychologist, guidance and counselor or whatever. Because the child may not want to talk to you. And then let the psychologist or the counselor or something be the one to tell you that it is a stage, not that something is happening. Because if she had been, you know, thought about that, perhaps she felt that she too, that's what she does, so she should know. But like I said, our children may not be too straightforward with us. And then we ourselves may be blind. You know, like they say that a candle doesn't see, lantern can read their hair. It doesn't see. That's why even I think one of the ethics of medicine is that you don't treat your own family. Then when a child has sexual behavior and languages that are not age appropriate, you know, so when a child begins to say some things that is not age appropriate, please probe. If you have done all the protection and something still happens and your child tells you, react responsibly. Please don't overreact, because when you overreact in the presence of the child will not trust you again and they will not want to tell you things, you know. Offer support. Report. This one is what I've seen that a lot of people would want to cover up. And I'm like, report this person. And they're like, hey, how they say it? Hey, it's going to cause trouble. Blah, 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 blah. The truth of the matter is, when you don't make these people known, they will do it to another child. They will do it to another child. They will do it to another child. So we need to do this and then seek professional help.
I enjoyed everything you said. When he said he wanted my slide, I said there is no point. We can all speak to this one you have prepared. So I'll take off from just reacting to something you said about not overreacting. I think I have PhD in overreaction. Yeah, I'm the mother who will panic, and I didn't know until I saw my son one day. We were traveling. That was when I saw he was limping. Then I said, what's wrong with your leg? I now discovered his toenail was swollen. In fact, the nail was half removed. And why didn't you tell me? I screamed. He said, because you just freak out. I said, and what's the meaning of freak out? And I got angrier. What do you mean by that? The nail is coming off. Your toenail is coming off. Do you know you can have tetanus? You can have, he said, you see, you are freaking out already. So I had to, of course I didn't understand what he said at that point. We broke the journey to take him to a hospital. It was that bad because pus was already coming out. So if it had been something else, he still would not tell me because I already established myself that I panic. And I think, like she said, it's not very good for this motherhood and what we are talking about. So we really need to check ourselves in that regard to be able to, no matter how bad things are, be able to shield it and go and cry later when you are alone, not before the child. Otherwise, I probably have shut him off. I don't know what I did to make him have that my mother will just freak out. No need to tell her. I'll handle it myself. And then he was around 9 years. So how could you think you can handle anything for yourself? So it shows that for us, I think we parents are part of the problem. Our parenting skills are very poor. And I think I'm one of them with very poor parenting skills. But we need to work on it and get better. And then again, Ma, from the story you told about that child that was sexually molested within the house by an uncle, the two of them. Perhaps one of the things that was in my slide is that some of them, those who molest children, some have psychological issues. If you look at the way, or psychiatric issues, if you look at the narration, he is not just doing it to, there was a sadistic pleasure he was taking. In asking somebody else to come and a child to watch him and a child to do it, it shows that he has psychiatric issues. So what I think is a WHO or one other agency, what they recommend is even those sexual perverts need our help. If they don't get help, they will keep doing it. So while we recommend that the law takes its course, put them in jail and all that, they still need help. So the focus will be helping the child, the victim, and the perpetrator of the crime. Because if he doesn't stop, even if you put him in jail for 20 years, the day he comes out, he will do it again. And there are people like that, it's been recorded. They are serial offenders. They keep doing these things. So it's very important. And then one other thing, which I don't know, I'm sorry if you had talked about it before I came, is about our laws in this country. Our laws are faulty to the point that it is not easy to prove rape, especially in a Sharia court. It's not easy to prove rape because you need witnesses. But medical science is making it better. Now in the UK, they could take the child immediately and get tested. And then they have the DNA, they could cross-match, they could do everything. It's rigorous for us here. Very, very rigorous. And then a rape victim, the first thing a rape victim does is to have a bath. Bathing, soothes you. It soothes you, it comforts you. You could be in the shower for hours. You just want, you are looking for somewhere to hide yourself. And then under the shower, if you have running shower, you could cry as much as you want and nobody is hearing you. But you have washed off evidence. So if you go to hospital, there's nothing anybody can do for you. So if we come across anybody that has been raped, try to help the person not to take a bath, so that the medical science, the laboratories can take as much sample as they want to take. Believe me, there is hair of the person on you. Everything is on you. So if you submit yourself to medical care. They will be able to extract all the things they need, and then subsequently they can begin to match because they have evidence that there has been sexual molestation. And importantly, because she has spoke extensively on how it happens, the places it happens. She's told us it's usually people who are very close to the child, except in kidnap cases where the child is kidnapped and taken away. It's usually within the home, within the school environment. People the child is very familiar with are the people who would, sexually molest children. Then one of the things we need to be doing is to open up to say, how do we help victims of sexual molestation? How do we help them? First, we must listen. She said it. We must not judge. If somebody says, I was sexually molested, and you say, at what time? And she says 3 a.m. Your first response should not be, what were you doing outside at 3 a.m.? It's not a reason why you were molested. The person must have been laying ambush, So but once you say, what were you doing at 3 a.m., you have shut the person off. You are already judging the person. You are already blaming the person. And what they try to let us know is that sexual molestation, the victim can never be at fault. And there is no timeline in reporting sexual molestation. If it happened 10 years ago and she feels confident enough to talk about it now, we have a duty to listen to that person. Now, I don't know how many of you followed up the story at School for the Deaf in Kuje, where a child was sexually... Okay, we had to go on air to talk about those things. And I'm still in constant touch with the parents and the child and all that. And then so from even... You see that children with special needs are even much more vulnerable. Many of those children cannot even talk. They cannot talk. So when you have a child who cannot even talk at all, it means that you need to do twice whatever you do for a typical child for that child with special needs. It's a very terrible situation. And inshallah, we're having a program because I have a child with special needs, and then we are championing that course for sexual education for our children. We're having a program on Thursday in Gariki with parents of children with special needs and caregivers. We want to sit down and talk. Let's talk about what we can do to help our children. Luckily, we have a parent who has 2 children with special needs, and 2 of them, those are her only 2 children, and 2 of them are about 29 now because they are twins. So she has gone through it, so she's willing to sit with us and share her experiences. So inshallah, we'll be doing that. So importantly, we all must sit together and say this is a problem. Now, the way we grew up, children can't grow up that way again. They can't grow up that way again. My mother told me, if a man touches you, you are in trouble. And I took it seriously. And no man will touch me, I will slap you. Those who went to school with me knew me as somebody who was always fighting. Because my mom had told me, if a man touches you, I don't know what that means, what it meant at that time. But if you tell a child that today, they will question you. Our children are much more inquisitive. And then today, our children are more susceptible to sexual harassment because we are not at home as parents. Even when we are at home, we are only physically at home, we are not with the children. We're on Facebook, we're on social media, we're doing all sorts, but not focusing on the child. So we need to focus more on the child and stop doing those things that are distracting us from being focused on the child. And one of the things that is also categorized as sexual harassment for a child is exposure to pornography. A friend told me, sadly, I lost the guy in January. He's a child psychiatrist. That's what he knew. Pediatric psychiatrist. Yeah, that's what he was. He died early in January this year. So a mutual friend told me, it was when he died that a mutual friend told me that her son of 8 years was addicted to pornography. Addicted. Not that he watches, he was addicted. And he had to take this guy to help that child. Because we give them smartphones. Smartphones have internet. They are smarter than we think, these children. Honestly speaking, they go to all sites. My child with special needs knows how to navigate all the websites you can think of. He will open the laptop. So they go through these things. And he said at some point, the child could not stay in school without watching pornography. He wants to be seeing it. So they had to do a lot, take him out of school and took him for care before he was, they were able to remove. I don't know how much of it they've been able to help him with, but it was a problem. So how much access do our children have to internet unhindered, unchecked? Okay, so these are some of the things we really, really need to ask. And then I was going through, in the research for this, and I think that if we go back to being Muslims, we will be able to solve or reduce some of these things. If we go back to doing the things the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asked us to do. When your child is reaching adolescence, you are supposed to separate them. You're not supposed to put them in the same room. A lot of things happen at night. Night is very long. We're supposed to separate them. We are not doing that because we stay in 2-bedroom apartments. So you just believe they are all children, you put them together. They are not all children. Human fascination. The human brain is very, very wild, and it will imagine all sorts of things. So we need to do that. And then importantly again, if you have female young female children and there is an adult male in the house, there must be boundaries. Especially even if the person is an in-law, you may want to say so that they won't say I'm a wicked wife. There is no way you raise your child and not acquire bad name. And we now know that they even molest boys too. So it's not just about the girl child was getting a lot of attention, but the boy child too needs attention. I don't have a daughter, so my boy children too need the kind of protection I'm going to give the girl child. So we need to also focus attention on the boy child to know what is actually happening, especially if we are not around, and if we have adults staying with us, or even among themselves. Things can be going on that you are not aware of.
There is a standard you need to maintain when only your husband is there, and there is a standard that you cannot go below when your male child are around. You get it? Because you probably will have moved them to the point of seduction. You probably will not know. You understand that is going on. You get that? It's very, very important that we look at that, because a male child, the trauma that is going through from double ends now, we need to probably understand this kind of pressure so that we don't come, and they might not say it, but the moment they get to adolescence, if a female person or opposite sex become attractive, you understand, even if it's the mother. That is why Quran say you can't marry your mother, because if the exposition is too much, it does happen, and that's why you have father sleeping with the daughter. Ordinarily, there should not be attraction. You get it now? It could happen. The other thing I'm looking at is that in the case of the male child, the homo thing, the homosexual thing, it's one of the most interesting things to the young boys these days, because it seems very profitable. You understand? I've met a number of young boys with Porsche cars. You understand? It was a reward of that. And most times, if you look at the conversion of these so-called popes and bishops across the world is documented, yes, you're going to discover that they softly, with material attraction, abuse boys who are not men, but find it repugnant to report out of, the spirit of touch not by anointed. You get it now? Until they became adult. I say, Kai, Father so and so happens. Then in the course of doing things to it is the separation of the rooms. Wallahi, what you have said is Islam. About you to Mafi Gogo, must you stay in Gariki and stuff yourself